right. So we are.
Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Carbonite Convos. If this is your first time joining us, you've just taken your first step into a larger world. And like always, if you're a returning listener slash viewer, we always appreciate the support. We have a really special show for you tonight. This is going to be episode 34 of the Carbonite Convos podcast. And before we get into it, like always, I'm joined by my co-host, Alec Porterfield. Alec, how we doing, man?
Dude, I'm great. I'm so excited to get into the topic we have tonight. If you guys are tuning in, thank you so much as always. And, as usual, make sure you go hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button to stay alert with everything we're doing. But I'm ready to get into it, dude.
Definitely. And as a special guest tonight, we have Michelle from the Force of Light Entertainment YouTube channel. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, of course. So tonight we're going to be talking about the new Ahsoka information. Now, it's not 100% confirmed, but we got a show description for what these Ahsoka series will be about. So we're just going to talk about that, talk about our thoughts. But first, we're going to go into a little bit about Force of Light Entertainment. But right before we get into that, Alec, do you want to introduce everybody in the live chat really quick?
Yeah, so it looks like we already got a couple people hop in. We got Press Play, we got Josh Anderson and Brett. I hope I say this right. Yemens. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We really, really appreciate it.
Definitely. And just so everybody knows, if there's anything going on with our audio, let us know. If Alec, Michelle, or I are too quiet, too loud, feel free to let us know because we are still getting used to this live streaming thing. So feel free to give us any suggestions. But I think it's about time. Michelle, going off of the past few months, seeing how Force of Light Entertainment has grown, how did this whole channel come about?
Well, I'm actually a minister, and I was starting a Christian podcast, and I already had, the mic and stuff. And one day I was just like, Natalie, because I talk about movies and stuff all the time. Like it's a joke that we've said many times, but it's serious. Like when I used to come stay with her, like I would just be in her bedroom before she's even up, like talking about TVs and movies, like whether she wanted to listen to it or not, that's just kind of what she was going to get. And so one day I was just like, I'm already starting this podcast. I already have a mic and stuff like that. Why don't we just start a entertainment one and talk about movies, TV, anything we really want to talk about. And so that's kind of how it started. And then let's see, I think about 6 months in, we decided to start on YouTube. And we still do our podcast. We keep at least 3 a month out, but we pretty much have kind of moved into more of a true YouTube channel that just does a podcast is kind of how that's evolved. So it's been kind of an ongoing evolution.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and we mainly focus on Star Wars and Marvel, but one thing we've noticed from your channel is you focus on pretty much anything pop culture. I know you guys were talking a lot about Wonder Woman, the Snyder Cut. What do you guys, and this is just out of curiosity, what do you guys like talking the most about outside of Star Wars and Marvel?
Let's see. Well, I actually, and people who watch, like, they've heard me say this enough. They're probably like, we know, we get it, Michelle. Like, I actually have always been a DC person over Marvel. Like, I think just because I was a 90s kid, so you grew up with Batman. Like, then my favorite character in the MC or in Marvel became Spider-Man because that was the big thing that came out in 2000. So
Alec
it's kind of like I grew up
I'm right there with you.
Yes. I mean, well, Spider-Man's great. It's like, so I grew up with Batman, so I think I was just kind of geared being DC. And they're different, and I appreciate them both in their different ways. So it's probably like Star Wars, DC, and then Marvel, if we're doing kind of genre type thing. But we've enjoyed, branching out, and we did our first watch series where we had never seen Lord of the Rings, and we branched off into Lord of the Rings, and then Alien and Aliens. So all these different franchises that that we hadn't seen, and then other ones that we of course love. So we enjoy talking. Like originally on our thing, it said we talk Star Wars, DC, Marvel, and anything that excites us. So it's kind of that anything that just really excites us, we'll talk about.
No, for sure. Pretty much anything relevant.
Yes. Now there are some things like I've been watching, I'm late to the scene, but I've been watching The Crown on Netflix. I'm probably not just going to get on and talk about The Crown because it's not really our our audience what they want to hear.
I get that. I get that. And one thing I noticed from the chat really quick now, I'm not 100% where it came from, but I see our first Hail Lobster. Now, I saw you tweet about it the other day, but I wasn't 100% sure where that came from.
That came from this guy who took over, Coates is his last name, who took over, he's writing the current, I guess, Captain America comic.
Okay.
And I don't know why they picked him. He's like truly an activist. And anyone who listens to us knows I don't care what your politics are, but I don't want your politics in my fantasy or in my Star Wars or whatever it is. I just don't.
No, I've seen a lot about that. He's kind of a controversial pick, especially for Captain America of anything.
Yes, especially for Captain America. So basically, he made Red Skull. He basically kind of made him Jordan Peterson, who, of course, is a Canadian professor. And has done self-help books.
Gotcha.
And so anyways, Jordan Peterson just kind of trolled him back for it. I mean, it honestly was pretty funny.
Gotcha.
So he started with Hell Lobster. So he sold T-shirts with it for charity. So that's where it's come from.
Gotcha.
So basically, it's just a trolling back of how ridiculous it is that, Red Skull, who literally was, and I'll use the phrase we have to use on YouTube, a Yahtzee, to compare him to a psychology professor is just a bit odd.
That is a little strange. Alec, have you heard about that at all?
I'm not super familiar, but it sounds really, really interesting. It sounds very controversial, which is great stuff to talk about.
It was. But how about we get into some Ahsoka? You ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to start off by reading the description of the show because, this is where that episode originated from. So it was reported that the description says, Ahsoka Tano is on the hunt for the evil Grand Admiral Thrawn in the hope it will help her locate the missing Ezra Bridger, the young Jedi that disappeared with Thrawn many years ago. So after hearing that description, what are some initial thoughts you guys have?
Well, first of all, I want to say that the chat says that the host, so you have, I guess, a slight echo.
I always
guess
do.
the other two of us seem to be fine. So I'll let you you mess with that while we're talking.
I will try.
To me, it's just kind of what I expected. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but this is kind of this is just what I thought it was going to be. But from the moment Ahsoka showed up in Mandalorian and the moment she dropped Grand Admiral Thrawn, you're like, oh, well, her show's going to be the end of Rebels. Like, we're going to see that play out in live action.
Exactly. That's exactly how. And just so everybody knows, I am trying to work on the reverb. I gotten that every week, but I cannot seem to learn how to fix it. So if we do have any tech, would you say?
I said, "Come on, man, what are we doing?"
I know. If we have any technical people in the chat, please let us know. I heard the echo is tough.
We need a geek squad on retainer.
Yeah, we might. But Michelle, I think you're spot on because, like you said, right when we heard Grand Admiral Thrawn drop, I think we expected to see him sooner or later, and we kind of pieced together that he'd be with Ezra Bridger. Now, I think the main thing that stuck out for me is that, not the end scene of Rebels where we see Ahsoka and Sabine, no words exchanged, but we see them kind of take off together. Not that scene, but the true ending of Rebels, those past few episodes, those were in the year 0 BBY, before the Battle of Yavin, or, during Battle of Yavin, since it's the same year. And then Mando happens around 9 ABY. So I thought that was pretty crazy that they're still on that 9 years has passed since Thrawn and Ezra disappeared, and that still nobody knows where they are. I don't know if I was the only one that thought that time jump was pretty weird, but that really threw me off.
I hadn't thought about it that way because I just always think about the end scene, but you're right. If you add up all the time, it would be 9 years. So it's like those space wells really took them into the unknown regions.
Yeah,
always been
definitely.
confused at like what's the complication of her trying to find him? Because obviously, I'll make the comparison. I know it's not quite the same, but let's compare Luke finding Grogu just real quick. Again, I know it's not the same, but it's in the same atmosphere. Yes, Grogu was able to get on the the stone and able to connect with the Force and communicate that way. But Ahsoka is obviously very strong in the Force. Ezra is as well. Like he, in some categories, could be considered hot take here, but he's been mentioned as potentially being one of the ones eligible to be the chosen one around the same time. All that. But that's a different conversation. If he's that strong in the Force and all that, how are they not able to somehow communicate with each other? And that's always why I've been so confused on the whole topic. You know what I'm saying?
Are you saying why is Grogu and Ahsoka, why were they not able
Why
to?
was it so simple for Grogu and Luke to communicate? Yes, he had the stone and the temple and all that. But if Ezra and Ahsoka have a connection to begin with, and they're both strong in the Force, I don't understand why they're not able to more effectively communicate.
Okay, I thought you were talking about why was Grogu not able to connect with her. No, that is a good point.
Especially after everything they've been through together, being together in the world between worlds, the Veil of the Force, all that. I feel like the bonding between them should enhance the ability to communicate.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just gonna say, I think they do. I think it is that simple as they really set up that I guess that Jedi temple that Grogu goes to is so powerful in the Force, as you see him literally go into like a trance, like a laser beam almost goes up. I guess they literally make it like a strong Jedi has to be on that stone, and then they can send out something to another strong Jedi. But it makes you wonder too, like maybe in a way they have communicated slightly, just in the sense of Ahsoka senses that he's alive, like she hasn't given up this many years later. Really, I was joking, but seriously, maybe he's really far out there.
No,
He might be.
No, that's actually a great point, because I guess I don't know what put me in the mindset of when communicating through the Force that it had to be actual dialogue. Like again, I'm going to bring up Mando, Grogu, and Ahsoka meet for the first time, and they're sitting there communicating, no words being said out loud. In my head canon, they're having a physical conversation with words in an actual dialect. Now, odds are that's probably not what was happening, but that's the association that's in my head. So I'm curious if maybe there's like you said, maybe it's just them sensing each other alive, kind of like a compass or something along those lines, or just a feeling. But again, I feel like after everything they've been through together, they should be able to be like, hey, Ahsoka, I'm chilling over here. Come find me.
This is where you need a Snoke character just to be able to, make that Force bridge or whatever it was between Rey and Ben, where he's able to just connect the two of them. That would make this whole process so much easier.
If you can physically hand a lightsaber to someone else through the Force, you should be able to say, hey, bro, what's going on? Where you at? You know what I'm saying?
You'd think.
But I guess that's just part of the story.
Well, and it makes you wonder. Because, I guess maybe you could chalk that up to him being on the dark side. But it's like Ahsoka doesn't sense Anakin's presence until she passes him on that ship in Rebels.
The Force is a
but
weird
I guess
thing.
maybe she wasn't searching for it. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like, and I'm going off of Grogu, not Rey and Ben, because they didn't seem like they were trying to do anything. I see in the comments that it says that's better. If we could get maybe one or two more people to agree with that, I'll know 100%. But going off of Grogu, he was trying to reach out to somebody. I think maybe if it's possible, maybe Ahsoka doesn't know of this, quote, power that goes into communicating with someone through the Force. Maybe she doesn't know that you can communicate with someone on the other side of the galaxy, or do something like Luke did in The Last Jedi where you can project yourself. Maybe she doesn't know of this power yet. I could be wrong though, and I do see someone. It says don't try to apply logic to the sequel trilogy, but it did have had some good Force qualities. In all honesty, I was kind of on the side of some of the things that happened through the Force. I thought it was super interesting, and if we're talking about the Force as this, we're the luminous beings, and the Force is this thing that binds all of us. There's really no way to understand it. So it's kind of like how we've talked about religion, Alec, how we're not able to wrap our human minds around everything that the Force can do. So, who's to say that everything in the sequel trilogy, that it was, illogical, you know what I mean?
Right. Who's to say that everything has to make sense?
Exactly.
I guess that's part of it, and that's part of understanding and studying it is, like, not everything has to make sense. Things are going to happen, and things that are supposed to happen are supposed to happen. Also, at the end of the day, there has to be a story. There has to be a story in some capacity. So I feel like this is going to get stretched out. And I say stretched out not in a bad way, that it's going to get that there's going to be a lot of filler or anything, but this is going to be a very interesting ride for the both of them, being Ahsoka and Ezra. And personally, I'm glad it doesn't make sense, because I want the story. I want to find out what happens. I want the relationship between the two characters to build as much as physically possible, because they're both great. I've had my beef with Ezra. If anyone's ever tuned in before, I've talked about it quite a bit. Dude gets on my nerves like crazy, but I'm excited to see him when he's older and see that relationship between the two build.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sense of this my brain's racking around this question. I think we do have to remember, I know a lot of people wanted more or something different with Luke in The Last Jedi, but I think, his Force projecting was like a really master move that, they even say that the effort alone would kill you. He says that to Rey, or Kylo says that to Rey. But I really think I'm just stuck on it, and because maybe it's the only rational thing my mind can think of. I really think there has to be like a distance issue. Like Ahsoka can probably sense, she knows in her being he's alive, but like they can't communicate because she's not a Force ghost who can propel herself anywhere, and she probably isn't quite as powerful as Luke in The Last Jedi to where she could just beam herself somewhere. So it probably is almost like a beacon, and he's outside of the loop of where she can get to. I don't know. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, he's outside those boundaries. And maybe, who knows where Luke was, when Grogu called out to him. Maybe he was outside that whole radar, or, whatever we're talking about now. Maybe he was outside, but maybe it takes being on, a very spiritual place like Grogu was. And I can't remember the planet right now. Where that first Jedi temple, where that Jedi temple was, but maybe it takes being in a place like that, and with the Jedi being almost extinct, maybe she doesn't really know where too many of those places are left. I know she knew about the one in Mandalorian, but maybe that's the only one she knows about.
There's also a good chance she wasn't fully. There's 100% a very good chance that she just fully wasn't educated on everything when she left the Order. I'm sure there's a ton of information and training she wasn't subjected to, and there maybe that criteria wasn't something she just hadn't learned yet, that she learned, that the Padawans learn when they're a little bit older.
Yeah. And we do know from the end of Rebels that they're like way out there in the middle of nowhere. So like no one knows where they are, because those space whales took them out.
Yeah.
Let's just say Verizon doesn't make calls to that place.
No,
there's no towers there.
Yeah, someone in the chat says they can't afford. Sorry, Josh Anderson says can't afford long distance calls. So that might very well much be it. You know what I was just thinking actually, because it was Ahsoka that told Din to bring Grogu to that temple, put him on the rock. I wonder why throughout this whole thing, if she's looking for, because clearly she's looking for Thrawn, trying to find him, but also hoping that that will lead to Ezra as well. I wonder why she didn't just go to the rock herself and try to connect with Ezra.
I'm sure she did in some capacity. I guess it's probably an issue on his end.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to bring up for tonight. Like, what do you think on the other end with Thrawn and Ezra? What do you think that relationship is like? How do you think that's building on both sides? Because, you know, they both, I think, have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah, what if Ezra hasn't wanted to be found?
That could very well be it. He was always, for lack of a better term, unique. You know, he didn't really do things by the book, which is, you know, a lot like Ahsoka. She's that type of Jedi, but he never really went by the book. He was kind of, in my opinion, he was a little defiant of Kanan. He didn't always follow the rules, which, you know, Jedi tend to not. But I never thought of that, actually. That's a good point. Maybe he doesn't want to be found.
Nick, we've had this conversation several times, and Michelle, I'll just kind of fill you in very briefly. I can't stand Ezra sometimes, and we had this conversation, like, I think, you know, Ezra sucks. I think he's
to clarify really
stupid,
quick.
whatever.
You don't like you don't like younger Ezra.
That's the point I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
Is that we didn't like young Ahsoka either. In like in the movie, she was annoying. Like the whole Sky guy and all that. Like it got a little bit annoying for a little while. She got older and she's a fan favorite character. She's one of my personal favorites as well. I can only imagine that he's gonna have the same sort of glow up as she does. You know, especially coming live action, I feel like he's going to be portrayed in a much different way. And obviously he's had time to grow. He's probably been through the ringer at this point, out on his own, surviving, who knows what. So by the time he gets back, he actually may be not a punk, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the actor that's rumored to be playing him, I mean, I think he can do a really good job with him.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I heard, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, I was going to say Nerd Theory, but that wasn't it. That was Star Wars Theories podcast. If you're familiar with the Den of Nerds, Josh was talking about it, and I think he made a good point that, you know, what's his name? The guy who's...
it's Manis Masood, or
yeah.
I'd have to see it in front of me to...
Yeah. The guy from Aladdin.
Yes.
He's kind of that typical. I think he's a Disney choice. You know, he plays Aladdin, and even before he got cast for this role, I didn't know this, but Ezra had been compared to, he was called the Space Aladdin, and I had never seen that. So you bring in a character that's very Disney-esque, you know, he's very peppy, and, you know, other synonyms of that word. He's very uppity, you know what I mean? And I think he will do a great job playing Ezra, but I think it's gonna be really interesting to see him playing a more hardened version of Ezra, because I think the next time we see him, he's gonna be 9 years older. So Alec, I think you're gonna like him a lot more.
I hope to God.
Yeah, maybe. I hope he
gets
has
on my
beard.
nerves, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we can take away from the planning that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have done.
Yes.
Where they're setting up Grand Admiral Thrawn to be this big, like the big bad. Like we're in the Mandalorian, we've been dealing with underlings basically, even in the Moff.
Yeah.
So it's like, I believe he's going to be the true bad. And so if that's the case, then I think there's one or two options.
Okay.
One, yes, Ezra was strong in the Force, but he wasn't fully like a full trained Jedi either. It's not like he was on Anakin's level or Luke's level in many ways, you know, by Return of the Jedi or anything. So he was on a ship with them. It's like he very well is a prisoner, for all we know.
Yeah.
So that's an option. And then the other option is that he's kind of jaded and had to work with Thrawn and has a weird relationship with him at this point, where it would be hard to almost turn on him. So I think there's two ways they could do this character. Either he's been beaten down and kind of almost like a prisoner for these years, and or maybe kind of a mixture. Maybe he has Stockholm syndrome and he likes Thrawn. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like it will go one of those two ways.
Alec,
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. That's a great point, because obviously, like, he was at an age where he's very young at that point in your life. Every kid his age is very subjective to what type of adult they're gonna be because of the people around them. So he's different around Kanan. He's different around Ahsoka. He's different when he was around Maul, and he was easily subjected to all those different characters and their mentorship and leadership and all that. The Wake Down in the chat had a great point, talking about there's a good chance he may not be on the right side. He may be more Sith than anything else after being gone and around Thrawn and whoever else, because there was a reason Maul was so attracted to him. He obviously is very in touch with the dark. He did a few questionable things, so there's a good chance he may not come back on the light side.
No, I agree 100%. And Michelle, going off of what you were saying, and Alec, you as well, I think you guys are both spot on, because Ezra has done some very questionable things that I'd say, quote, normal Jedi wouldn't do. A normal Jedi wouldn't, work with Maul in the Sith Temple, for starters. He wouldn't mess with the holocron afterwards. He was doing it for the right reasons, I think, but still, that's part of being a Jedi, is knowing when to not tap into that. But I definitely do see, out of the two scenarios you were talking about, Michelle, I do see it going more towards him being kind of in league with Thrawn. And I'm curious to see how Thrawn has rubbed off on Ezra, because Ezra's a very... sometimes I don't think he thinks before he acts, but on the flip side, Thrawn does not do a single thing without analyzing every detail first. So if you put that, that demeanor that Thrawn has, you put even some of that in Ezra, whether it be bad or good, him being a Sith or a Jedi, or even being either of them at this point, I think it will make Ezra either a very powerful Sith or a very powerful Jedi, because a Jedi that can control his actions and kind of just flow through the Force very seamlessly, I think that makes for a very good Jedi. But on the flip side, a Sith who's able to analyze everything, as opposed to Darth Maul, pre-Clone Wars, pre-Rebels, who kind of just went into it and was just ready to kill Jedi. When you have a Sith that has Thrawn's ideals and his demeanor, I think that could make for very powerful Sith on his end as well.
That's scary.
Very.
That's very scary. Josh in the chat said, what if Thrawn ends up being Force sensitive? He's already very manipulative, whatever. I don't even think he would need to be Force sensitive to manipulate Ezra into this up and coming big bad type of character.
One thing I find really interesting is that in the if this is the true description of the show, I found it interesting how they say the evil Grand Admiral Thrawn, because yes, he's a villain, but I don't see him as purely evil to the core. When you think of Palpatine, I think he's evil. He's the worst you're going to find. All he wants is destruction. He wants all power for himself. I think when it comes to Thrawn, he's not too concerned with power. His number one absolute goal is to protect the Chiss dynasty, race? I don't know what to... The Chiss people. That is his number one goal. So I've never really pictured him as this evil character. I've kind of just seen him just doing what he needs to be done to protect his people. I don't know. So I find it weird that they said evil, because I've never really pictured him like that.
I mean, he is the big bad of Rebels by the end of it.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
But I get what you're saying on that too. He's nothing like, he doesn't even seem as cold as Tarkin.
No, I'm excited to see Tarkin. We're gonna get some more Tarkin very soon. Very soon. Are you guys doing anything special for the Bad Batch? I'm sure you guys will talk about it pretty frequently.
Yeah. Well, no. I'll probably. How many episodes are there? There's more. There's way more than there's 13.
To be honest, I'm not sure.
I think I was thinking 14, so somewhere around there.
I knew it was around there. I may even wait until like they all come out and then like do one like episode on them, but I'll
Really?
definitely talk about them, whether it's weekly or whatever. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we will see him. But I was thinking, because you guys have me theorizing at this point. So I was thinking, the relationship with Ezra and Thrawn, it could be almost a survival, a relationship out of necessity, like survival. Like they need one another to navigate out of wherever they've been, maybe, possibly. I mean, I'm given multiple scenarios, but it could be. I mean, talk about what good TV it would be if like Ahsoka finds Ezra, and it's not like, Ezra, come on, and he just comes, but it's like he's fighting something and they kind of have to duel it out a little. I mean, that would actually make for more interesting TV, really.
Well, how often in quality television is that the case, where friendships are born out of a bad situation and you have to team up together and become frenemies and end up being so powerful together? I guarantee that's a very similar situation. Maybe Ezra, relates to him and finds out that Thrawn isn't evil down at the core, that at the end of the day he's doing what he believes is right, which is what every villain ever is truly doing, and he relates to him as a person and can get inside his head and maybe convinces him to I don't want to say come back to the lighter side, but not do as evil of things. There's always that possibility.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing we have to remember too is, if the sequel trilogy didn't happen, this would be much different. But not the sequel trilogy. If Rise of Skywalker hadn't brought Palpatine back, it would be a lot different. I think the main thing we have to remember is that Palpatine is still there. So I am very curious to see if I know some people are sick of Palpatine, but I think we need some type of explanation how he was able to amass this like gargantuan fleet, like nothing we've ever seen before in like 30 years or something. I could be a little off time-wise, but he was able to amass this fleet. How was he able to do that? So I'm very interested to see if we're going to see Palpatine pulling the strings behind Thrawn. Maybe Thrawn is working for Palpatine all along. Maybe he's not, but I think we need some kind of explanation to see if Palpatine's behind any of this. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I think he definitely is. I think he's behind the cloning that we saw in episode, 4 of the season.
Yeah.
With Cara and Grief. Mm-hmm. So I think they're definitely kind of fleshing that out for the audience more.
Okay, gotcha. Man, Wake Down, you are making some great points. This says, in the old canon, it was basically Thrawn got exiled, destroying the outbound flight project by the Jedi. Palpatine recruited him. And that's a theory I've heard going around the fandom a lot, is that after Palpatine comes back, he kind of recruits Thrawn to be pretty much the face of the Empire up until his return. So I think it's going to be interesting to see almost how long Thrawn survives, because you don't hear him mentioned in the sequel trilogy at all, and by that time it's Supreme Leader Snoke, it's Kylo Ren, General Hux, Phasma, it's all them in charge. So I think that either by that time he has completely stepped away from the military and I guess trying to protect the Chiss, maybe he's just living amongst them at that point and just kind of living out the rest of his days, or he's just dead. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if they fill in those gaps. Because I do think at some point we have to see Thrawn's death. We've seen, all the big bads die so far. Palpatine, Maul, Vader, Dooku. We've seen everyone die. So if Thrawn, which I think he will be the main villain going into Ahsoka as well. So I think at some point we have to see his death, whether it's in Ahsoka or not.
Do you guys know, does Thrawn die in the EU?
I don't know. I think Wake Down is the person to ask for that. Wake Down.
Do you know if Thrawn dies?
Yeah. From what I've seen, and I know the guys that from the Sarlacc Digest, who we talk to pretty frequently, they think that where this is going is a lot towards the Heir of the Empire track. Now, I'm not 100% positive where they went with that, but I know that it involves a lot of cloning as well. I think there's not a Mace Windu clone. I think maybe a Luke clone or something like that in the books. I could be wrong. I wasn't a big Legends guy, but I would assume that he did die. But that's just me. Yes, he did. All right, there we go.
His bodyguard killed him.
Okay.
Interesting.
There we go. That's awesome. That's great. I've actually been meaning to go back and read the Thrawn books. I tried to sit down and read it one day, but I got like 20 minutes in, and I couldn't do it. It just didn't catch me right away. So I think I'm gonna give it a couple months and try to go back.
Well, I bet then with knowing, I guess he died, not that they have to follow the EU, but it is suspicious that all of a sudden they're putting a little more behind the EU recently, if you notice, like they're bringing back books and things like that for sale and things like that type stuff.
I feel like that's definitely intentional, just because in the community, like so many people were unhappy with, the direction it was going, that maybe this has to be some homage for them to bring them out in maybe a little bit and make, try to make everyone happy.
And I think Filoni is smart enough that he's not going to fully redo the Thrawn that the hardcore fans that read the EU know. Like, I think he's going to, it may be slightly different, as I guess he kind of is, but I would say too, with them saying the evil Grand Admiral Thrawn, again, I think they're going to make he's the big bad that they're all kind of going to work towards. But I would say, of course, Star Wars is all about decision and choice and light and dark. So I'd say we're going to see a Thrawn that probably is the most villainous Thrawn we've ever seen.
I think that'd be super interesting, definitely. Because you actually are right. It does come down to choice many times, where you see on both sides they have the choice to go down the dark path or just kind of continue on the light. Going off of what you guys were saying about Thrawn and the whole EU, I think specifically, Michelle, what you said about Filoni, I think that, and a lot of other fans think the same thing, is that Star Wars is in the best hands when Filoni and Favreau as a duo, when they're at the helm. I think they're going to make something that's very accepted by all fans, because I haven't seen a lot of people argue about The Mandalorian, and I think the most I've seen the arguments about that show were about it all tied in The Last Jedi and Luke and the sequel trilogy. So there's always going to be people that hate on the sequel trilogy, and everybody has their own opinions. So that's completely natural. But I think Filoni being in charge and knowing what he knows about the EU, because I think he's one of the biggest Star Wars fans in the world, so I'm sure he had to have read the books growing up. Clearly he saw them. He knows what he's talking about. I would almost compare that to the MCU, where they go along the same path as the comics, but they just vary slightly. Where they
keep it light and fresh.
Yes,
they retell a story while keeping it new.
Yeah, they keep a lot of the same elements, but they tell it their way. So I would assume that that's how it would go specifically with Thrawn.
Kind of like, I think, which I think Filoni's kind of wanted to do. I mean, Favreau's kind of wanted to do. Kind of like, I think that's kind of what the MCU's done. Like, they take the comics and kind of do them their way, but yet it's true enough to the comics that the true comic fans kind of appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what, I think you're right on that.
Well, it's the perfect example right now with what's going on in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with Karli Morgenthau being the leader of the Flag Smashers, versus in the comics, Karl Morgenthau individually is the villain known as the Flag Smasher. So just like keeping it new, it's that simple, and I think it's doing a great job.
I also think with the fandom is very vocal. I'd say probably one of the most vocal groups in the world. They will let you know exactly what they want, and I think a lot of people enjoy seeing these EU elements being put in Star Wars, and I think Filoni is a guy that listens to the fans, and he is able to find that common ground between both parties. So I think we saw that a little in The Mandalorian, connecting the cloning process and everything. So I don't think that's over whatsoever.
No, and I think I would say, and I haven't read the EU. I know enough about it to kind of piece together a decent amount. But and there's some that sounds ridiculous, but there's some of it like Heir of the Empire and things that seem beloved and sound really good. I think one of the biggest mistakes probably Disney made when they purchased Lucasfilm was just, and I understand that they wanted to kind of decanonize it so they could do what they're going to do and kind of make it fresh, as you said, and make their own money with it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest mistakes was fully discarding when they wrote the sequels what happened in the EU, because a lot of those storylines probably would have played out better to the diehard fans.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because when they came in, it was like one day, hey, Disney buys Lucasfilm. Next day, Legends is gone. It's just so I can 100% understand why hardcore Legends fans were upset about that, and I think personally, I think they have learned from the sequel trilogy. Sorry, I messed that word up. I think they've learned from it in the fact that I think John and Dave will be able to kind of piece their mistakes back together. So either way, I'm excited to have John and Dave at the helm. I know they're doing the Ahsoka series. I would assume they're doing Mando season 3. I couldn't imagine someone else doing it. Now, do we know Mando season 3? I'd assume that was 2022, or is that 23?
I think it's 23 because it just keeps getting pushed back because Obi-Wan is now, I believe, supposed to begin filming like any day where Mando films.
Really?
And I guess, yes. And like Boba Fett's finished, it seems.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is going to be filming in Los Angeles in that studio.
Oh, yeah. So, they are using the same one.
Yeah. So we can't really get any dates of when Mando, if say it comes after Obi-Wan, there's no way that's coming out in 2022. That's going to be 2023 that we would get Mando.
Yeah. Yeah. And, kind of going off the Mandalorian theme, with Ahsoka having this series, what do you think the odds are that we see other characters, like specifically Sabine?
Oh, I think that's 100%.
Now, do you think
this is that I was completely shocked we hadn't seen her yet.
Yeah.
With bringing in Bo-Katan, for the longest time, I thought one of the other Mandos with her was Sabine, because she went unnamed. I could have sworn I was willing to bet my life that was Sabine. Obviously, it wasn't, but I'm still to this day shocked we haven't gotten her.
And I think it was a smart move to not give her, because what they did was give us Bo-Katan, who I think is going to play heavily into Mando season 3 of going to Mandalore.
Yeah.
And then you save Sabine, the freshness and coolness of, it's Sabine, for the Ahsoka show. Yeah. So I think that was a smart move.
No, definitely, because they can't throw too many characters at us at once, because they gave us not fan favorites. I was going to talk about them later. Yeah, they gave us Bo-Katan, and then they gave us the fan favorites with Ahsoka, Luke. They can only throw in so many cameos in one. Well, Boba Fett too. I forgot that one. They can only give us so many of these characters in one season. So you're exactly right. They had to leave her for something else. Now, what do you think Sabine's role will be in this? Do you think she'll be able to tie in other Mandalorians, or do you guys think this is just a duo of Sabine and Ahsoka setting out on this job? Because it's been 9 years, so I can't imagine they've spent. Well, it's been 9 years since the end of Rebels, but the end scene. Michelle, you said it was after Return of the Jedi, correct?
Yes.
So this is about 5 years. About 5 years difference still between Return of the Jedi and Mando season 2 when we see Ahsoka. So. I do wonder if it's just Ahsoka and Sabine.
I would say so. I mean, one, that's cheaper as far as getting actors. Yeah. But I think kind of the way Mando season 1 was so much just Mando and Baby Yoda, and I mean it really always. I think that's kind of what we're going to get with Ahsoka. I wouldn't be surprised if it literally picks up like the moment that Mando and the child left, like, and she is going to like get Sabine Wren. Like that's when she leaves Mando and Grogu, and she goes and we see the epilogue of Rebels, like her arriving to get Sabine. Like I really think that's just gonna flow like right into it.
Michelle, I'm not gonna lie. I just got a little bit of goosebumps thinking about that being a real thing. I'm a little fired up thinking about it. I hope to God. The thing is, they don't need anything else than those two. They are completely fine on their own. They're both badass, cool characters. People love, interesting. They still have so much room to grow and develop as characters. I don't think they need to clutter it and add anything else to the duo.
No, because here's what you do. You have Ahsoka and Sabine. So that's who the camera's going to be on at one time. And then you begin to move, probably by the time you reveal it, maybe at the end of the first episode, you begin to maybe go back and forth between Sabine Wren and Ahsoka and Thrawn and Ezra and keep the camera going back to these two storylines.
I'd like that. I'd like that
That'd
a lot.
That'd be very nice.
One thing I was thinking when preparing for the show, do you guys think that this show will tie into Rangers of the New Republic at all? Because they're supposed to be going along, within the same time. And the thing that sticks out to me there is with Hera, there's been a lot of heavy rumors that Hera is going to be one of the main stars in Rangers of the New Republic. Do you think that could have any type of tie-in with the Ahsoka series, specifically with Hera? Because I don't think Trapper Wolf and the other Ranger will have too much to do with Sabine and Ahsoka. But I definitely think that if Hera truly is in that show, I think there's a very big possibility that we could see some type of overlap there.
Yeah, possibly, because I believe all the shows that Favreau had set up, Mando, Boba, Rangers, Ahsoka, I think they were all going to get their MCU style. We got some characters in Mandalorian. They're now getting their own show.
Yeah.
And then I believe they were working towards their Infinity War, so to speak. Like, I think they were all going to work together until they collide for the evil Grand Admiral Thrawn, as the thing says.
We've actually talked about that on the podcast a little as well, about all this, Ahsoka, Mando, Boba, every series, I don't know if the movie will connect directly with this timeline, but all of this culminating into an Infinity War Endgame style build-up. And we've talked about it, but I would love to see that played out in the movie theaters. I would love to have everything lead to this climactic moment and us be able to go to the theaters and see this Endgame style battle, but it be Star Wars. I can't get the smile off my face now just thinking about it.
Dude, I don't know why, but the dumbest thought ever just came to my mind when you guys were talking about being an Endgame-esque type of thing. For some reason, I just pictured like the Ghost Squadron or whatever chilling with like Mando and everyone's chilling there, and Ahsoka uses the Force to pull in the dark saber, and it's like Ghost Squadron assemble or something ridiculous.
You start seeing like the veil of the Force.
Dumbest take ever, but I don't know why. It was the first thing that came to my brain.
Not practical, but interesting for sure. You start seeing the veil of the Force circles instead of the portals.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. I think people would backlash though.
Oh, it'd be awful.
Yeah,
it'd be terrible. But
so, other than Sabine and Ahsoka, other than anything we've talked about, do you guys have any other thoughts of what we could expect in the Ahsoka series as a whole?
You definitely could get, I don't know if they would show her, but if they really are casting a Hera, I think you could definitely get her over like the comms, maybe get her voice, possibly.
Yeah. I know we got a little bit of that in Rogue One. Well, we just got a name drop, but we didn't get her actual voice.
Got you.
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting, for sure. I wonder where Zeb is in all this.
I was about to say Zeb. Yeah
he's got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Huh.
One thing I'd like to see, and this is probably going to happen, and this is just because of how much I love Vader. It's not an appearance or anything, but just more along the lines of her telling stories from the Clone Wars, from learning from Anakin, from those sort of things. Like when her and Ezra are talking, and she has the hologram of, I believe it's her and Ezra talking. She pulls up the hologram of Anakin fighting in the Clone Wars. She goes, "Oh, this was my master. He was the greatest Jedi. the greatest pilot, whatever. Things like that. Just paying homage to her past life and the character and those sort of things. That's what I want to see. That's just me.
No,
I
definitely.
think I would say Filoni will probably give us a little bit of that, because even in that, which I have to go back and watch, that's probably like my favorite episode, or one of them, the one with Ahsoka. It's definitely one of them. But like the moment where they're sitting under the moonlight and she begins to talk about wise Master Yoda, and his theme kicks in. It's just, it pulls out the heartstrings for people. So I would say they'll do it. Something, do we know there's a lot more rumors about a Luke Skywalker show? Does anyone feel like that's confirmed or not confirmed?
I don't think it's confirmed. I know after Mando season 2 ended, there were a lot of talks about Luke and Grogu getting the show, and then I think where the rumors were coming from was Disney trademarked Skywalker Academy, was it? I think it was, they trademarked the phrase Skywalker Academy, but I think that could be anything. That could be a comic, that could be a children's book. If it were, personally, I am all up for as much Luke Skywalker as they give us. But I don't know. That's just me.
Well, the reason I ask is, what would be a missed moment, in my opinion? You talk about a moment that would give every diehard fan, just, so make them so excited. If you got Luke and Ahsoka to meet, and you get Luke to tell Ahsoka that Anakin came back in the end, so that would touch her heart, and then Ahsoka could tell Luke all about who Anakin really was. So it's like they both would have something the other one would so value.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I've seen artists draw that scene up, kind of like a comic strip, where where exactly like you said, where Luke is telling Ahsoka that Anakin was redeemed, her telling him about Anakin as Anakin. I think that would be incredible. And the fact that we're already getting Hayden Christensen back in the Kenobi series, I think that could easily lead to maybe some flashbacks of them together. Whether it be Luke and Anakin, but that's not possible. I think that could open the door for having Hayden Christensen come back, which I think as prequel fans get older, I will never complain seeing Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader. So you're exactly right, that if they did make a Luke show, that would be a complete miss if they didn't do that.
Well, and here's another question then, because it does seem to be separate. It's like we've got the the Favreau Filoni verse, and we have Kenobi and Andor.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, do you think there's any way would we see Ahsoka be in the Obi-Wan show? Like maybe make an appearance? I don't know. Would you
feel like it's
crossing?
I feel like there's a good shot for either a flashback or a vision in some capacity, because I know the Obi-Wan show it's about Obi-Wan. It's not about Vader. It's not about Anakin. However, there's going to be a good chunk of things going on with him. I feel like there's a very strong possibility of there being some sort of vision, whether it's a 2-minute clip or 30 seconds, whatever, of maybe Anakin and Luke doing something, or Anakin and Ahsoka in some capacity.
What do you mean Anakin and Luke?
I'm saying in some sort of vision. Maybe it's a dream or anything like that. Like, I feel like there's a good possibility for something along those lines.
Do you know, I would feel so much better about the Obi-Wan show, which I'm very excited for because I love Obi-Wan. I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. I would have so much more confidence though if I knew Filoni like had some hands in that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you really need him all up in that a little bit.
No, definitely. I think he is spread so thin right now as it is, it'd be impossible. But if there was something that I would want him to take care of, I think other than Ahsoka, I think you're exactly right. It would have to be Obi-Wan, because he absolutely loves the prequels, and more than that, he understands them.
Yes.
And I think they definitely need that, but at this point, I think they've learned from their mistakes from the sequel trilogy, and I have nothing but excitement for it. But I think you're right that it would be more comforting if it was Dave and John. There was something in the chat that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on. It's a little off topic, but it says, Josh asked, do you think they're merely explaining the sequel trilogy or actually rewriting it through Ahsoka being alive, treating The Mandalorian as an alternate timeline? What do you guys think?
I think it's enhancing it the way Clone Wars enhanced the prequels.
Exactly. Alec?
I mean, same. I guess the only potential reason that would be is when Ezra saved her, it created a different timeline. But like, I feel like that's stretching it.
I feel like that's not Star Wars. I feel like that's Marvel, DC.
Right.
Yeah. Josh, to answer your question, going off what they said, I do not think even in the slightest they're retconning the sequels. I don't think they're rewriting it. I think, the sequels are out there. You can't change it, but like Michelle said, you're enhancing it, and you can fill in those gaps. You can explain all the things that they didn't explain in the trilogy. So I'm excited for it. And I think they started that in Mando season 1 and 2, more specifically, like we mentioned earlier, with that cloning process.
I think you can see they can make sense of the sequels, so to say.
Yeah.
Which is why I brought up even the EU and a possibility of a Luke Skywalker show. I heard someone say this, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. They said, like, if there was a Luke show, and with the Thrawn and all this, that's going on, could there be a Mara Jade? And could Mara Jade at some point die, which further explains why Luke's so bitter in The Last Jedi.
Man, can you
That
imagine?
would do it.
Because
I
don't know. I haven't read the books, but I know who Mara Jade is. I know what their relationship was like. I can't imagine getting a show like that at this point. Just going off of after the sequel trilogy, I didn't think we'd ever see Luke again after that. So seeing him in Mandalorian, like so many other fans, that brought out the absolute kid in me. You saw it live that I bawled like a baby, as did so many others. So I think seeing him and seeing his story continued, I would absolutely love it. And I think that would explain why there was such a drastic change in this Luke Skywalker character.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but we've gone about an hour. Do you guys have any other thoughts before we let the people go?
No. I mean, I think with Ahsoka, I think it's in really good hands. Being in the fact that it's literally in Filoni's hands.
Yeah.
Well, we know Filoni's not going to let anything bad happen to his baby. So
No,
not at all. Not at all. I've seen some people be like, Dave, you got to let her go. I just think, like, why? There's the fans love her. She's a money machine. So like, why would he have to let her go? Everybody will watch. So I just don't understand that.
and the actress is phenomenal at being her. So
have you guys seen the rumors? And there's not a lot of credibility to them, but Alec, you would know. What is the actress's name that played? What's it? I think her name's Liz in Homecoming.
I'm not sure.
I've seen some rumors swirling around that she is going to play a live-action young Ahsoka. What do you guys think about that?
That wouldn't be a bad casting, I feel like.
Where would that be? What would that be for?
I was thinking that if they did that, it would be for the Kenobi series, because I almost think that Rosario Dawson and her Ahsoka look, I think she looks too old to see a flashback of her Ahsoka in the Kenobi series. So I've seen a lot of people talking that if she were to play her, that it would be in the Kenobi series as a flashback, and I don't think it's going to happen necessarily. I think it would get a little confusing for people to see animated Ahsoka, this new Ahsoka, and then another one. I think people would have a hard time following along with that. But after looking at her, looking at the way she acts, not acts in real life, but like actually acts, I think she would be a great Ahsoka because she looks almost, it's uncanny how much they look alike too.
Very similar.
And she has the same body type.
Now, I doubt they put Ahsoka and everything, but I mean, there's like a possibility Ahsoka could show up in the Cassian show because Ahsoka at that point was Fulcrum.
Yep.
So she was in connection with the rebels.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% where this story is, where Cassian lies on the Star Wars timeline. Clearly it's before Rogue One, but I'm not 100% where that is. I heard
that would be cool for the Fulcrum if that were to make an appearance. If it was just a voice, so it's nothing too over the top, like it's getting thrown at you. Just even 2 or 3 lines in the whole thing would be super cool. Just a nice little tribute.
Then you get the Fulcrum hologram logo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'd like that. I've heard that we're gonna see Kenobi and Cassian. I heard that he was gonna be in 2 episodes.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think it'd be out of question, because with what Cassian's history is, he kind of has a dark history, but regardless of if it's all of the wrong things he's done, I think it's very possible for him to end up on Tatooine, and maybe Obi-Wan just needs to go into town and get some blue milk that day. So who knows? I don't know. But guys, this was super fun. That was I didn't expect it to go down some of the routes it did. That was super interesting. Before we cut this off, Michelle, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me, Michelle. I'm one half of Force of Light Entertainment, and you can follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube at Force of Light Entertainment. And we are on all places podcasts are as Force of Light Entertainment, and Twitter and Instagram at Force of Light Entertainment.
Sounds good. I love the way you describe it too. I might need to start saying that. You're one half of Force of Light, because that would work for us. One half each of Carbonite Convos. I am 60% of Carbonite Convos. Just kidding, Alec. I'm joking. But guys, same with us. Luckily enough, Carbonite Convos was not taken, so you can find us on all social media platforms and all podcast platforms at Carbonite Convos. So you can find us personally. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at FunkoStud. Alec, why don't you tell everybody in the chat where they can find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff at Wallcrawler Pops. Just, kind of to pay a little bit of the Spidey tribute in there. But you guys in the chat, thank you so much for adding the conversation. It was absolutely incredible, and it really enhanced the whole thing. So seriously, thank you guys so much for throwing out the ideas. Yeah,
this was definitely the most active the chat has ever been. So definitely thank you for tuning in. Don't forget that a big part of what we're doing here, Carbonite Convos, is on our second channel, Carbonite Collecting. We've had our channel trailer out, so you can go check it out to see exactly what you're going to find on that channel. But it's pretty much going to be highlighting everything you see behind Alec and us here. So I know we have our first video, official video, coming out this Friday, where I unbox the Emperor Palpatine Force FX Elite lightsaber. It's a mouthful, but definitely check this out. And you can find us here live on YouTube every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Again, thank you for joining in the chat. It was super fun. And Michelle, again, we really appreciate you coming on. This was super fun.
Yes, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was a fun conversation.
Definitely. We got to get you guys back on and have Natalie on. We'd love
my other half.
Yeah, exactly. We'd love to talk with both of you.
I'm just glad you called her half and not 40%, Nick. I'm so offended, man. Come on, dog. What are we doing?
Hey, you're the one that said it. You're the one that said it before the show.
I'm just kidding.
All right, guys. But until next Tuesday, where you can find us here, may the Force be with you guys.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.